So let's get into it. So today, what I want to talk to you all about is aligning strengths and how we actually accelerate a workforce. It has to start somewhere. So what are those first steps that you want to take to get the most out of your team, to align people within the proper roles, and to actually have outcomes that your company, your business, your team actually cares about? Well, it starts with having a framework that is going to be impactful, that is going to identify and allow your team's unique abilities, because everybody's a little bit different, to maximize that impact and performance, keep people engaged, keep people from burning out as well. Because once you start operating within your talents, your natural tendencies, and the places that you thrive within the workflow process, you'll start noticing that people actually do their best work. They enjoy working, and it just snowballs into this amazing effect that you didn't even realize you could create before. So every person on your team has unique talents. They've got unique experiences, and they also just have this innate ability within the workflow process that's going to be different. And people usually have pairings, and we'll talk about that. But you don't want to waste people's potential. That's the bottom line. So even if someone is in a specific role where they're doing tedious tasks, there are ways that you can tweak your processes and bring them into certain meetings, give them a different responsibility that helps them leverage that natural talent, that natural ability that they have in a way that they were never going to get in that regular job. So you're going to have to think a little more broadly, be a little more flexible with the way that work roles traditionally work. And if you are, then you'll be able to actually align those talents and boost your productivity, build the engagement, and keep burnouts at bay. So it kind of goes into the core idea here. That is, aligning talents is about matching each person's unique abilities and natural tendencies to the task and responsibilities where they'll thrive the most. So step one to actually aligning those talents is going to be identifying those core contributions. So you have to recognize that each team member naturally gravitates towards and excels at some phase of work. So a tool that I like to look at and use is the 6 types of working genius. I think it's a fantastic framework. If you are interested in checking it out, they have an assessment. I think it's like $20 or something, fairly cheap, that you could run through on your own. I am not a working genius certified coach or anything like that, but I'm working on my own framework that kind of delves into some of these ideas, because I've seen it pay dividends for my teams as I just started to implement some of these strategies. So you want to look at first what you observe and the dialogues that you have with people. And you're going to start noticing, once you have terms for the different phases of work, and once you have terms for what people naturally gravitate towards, that you can identify them fairly easily. So even without an assessment for every member of your team, you're going to be able to easily identify where people are thriving. So if they are a wanderer and an inventor like me, they're very far left on the spectrum of work. They like to poke holes at things, and they can just think deeply and philosophically about something for hours upon hours. For somebody else that's on the further end of the spectrum, like more on the tenacity enablement side, where they want to implement and they want to just get tasks done, y'all are going to clash all the time because you're on different ends of the spectrum and you have different ideas about how the work should be done. Ideally, you should be going through the whole flow, the whole process. So another way to say that is you have like ideators who love brainstorming and generating possibilities. And then you've got executors who thrive on completing tasks and seeing them through to fruition, and usually like to have their checklist to knock off. So step 2, once you've actually started identifying the terminology and who those people might be, is to start matching the roles to the contributions that those people can give and that they bring to the team and the project. So you have to reassess your responsibilities to ensure the tasks actually align with the individual's natural talent, or that the individual is aligning with the tasks, right? That you're putting them in the right place within the workflow process. So here's a question to ask yourself. Am I positioning this person where they can make their highest contribution, because they have that natural tendency tendencies, or are they stuck in a task that's actually draining them? Do I keep putting them on things where I can see that they're burning out? I can see that they're tiring out. Sometimes it's not even a matter of the amount of work, it's the type of work that you're putting them on. So that's a quick change that folks can make and just start matching them to those roles so they can contribute maximally based off their natural tendencies and where they actually thrive in work. And then step three, if you're just looking at this very broadly, holistically, is to monitor the progress and evolve. Be flexible, keep that alignment flexible so that way you can shift people where they need to be. It shouldn't be a trial and error process, but if you're doing this on your own, you might have to just work with what you've got and the knowledge that you have. If you're looking for someone that's more of an expert in these types of things, obviously, I've got a program here and do one-on-one coaching, and I would love to work with you all independently or with your teams holistically. But you're going to have to do a little bit of trial and error. You're going to have to test out your understanding of these processes and those natural strengths, geniuses, whatever you want to call them. And your team dynamics are going to shift a bit anyway, right? So as you get different people in, you might be missing a piece of the puzzle that you weren't missing before. You might have filled a gap as people leave and people come and go. So you have to be aware of that. I suggest having a chart that you can have up of your team with their different working geniuses or their different whatever kind of titles you want to use. And I mentioned 6 types of working genius compared to StrengthsFinder, Myers-Briggs, any of these other personality types, because they honestly get way too complicated, Enneagram, and because they're personality focused, it could be a good tool, but I find it to be very much optional and not quite aligned with how work is actually completed. Whereas the 6 types of working genius and the frameworks that I'm working on and will be using are directly tied to how does work get done? How do I put people in the right spot to be the most efficient, effective, and get the most out of my people, and they actually enjoy what they're doing. So you're going to have to use regular check-ins, adjust the roles and responsibilities as needed. But like I said, if you're working with me and doing these properly, we can do it without trial and error. You can just jump straight in and do it right the first time. So here's some examples and stories. So when I was in the military, I still technically am active duty, but on my way transitioning out from the Space Force and the Air Force prior to that, just over 10 years, coming up on my 12-year mark, actually, that I've been leading teams and working across the Department of Defense, intelligence community, various different levels that I've worked at. And I have seen so many times, I'm sure all of you have examples of where you see a person who is burning out, you see a person who hates the job that they're in, and you're not really sure how to quite put your finger on what it is, what the problem is. And there's other external factors, of course, but I really do think that this is a primary factor of having people in the work that they actually enjoy. I think that work is a natural thing for human beings to do, and that if we are just stagnant or we are outside of work for too long, we start to get kind of restless. I think most people have experienced this. You want something to work on. You want something where you are aligned with a bigger vision, a bigger mission, and you're working towards a goal and creating and building something. But not all of us do it through creation, ideation, the evaluation and judgment discernment piece, and the tenacity implementation. Most people, actually everyone, has different phases that they thrive in. And if you can't pinpoint it, it's going to be very, very difficult for you moving forward. So I've seen it with my teams all over the place. When it comes to business, of course, there are going to be roles. If you have someone who has to do a monotonous task, you're going to want someone who's a good implementer, someone who doesn't mind going in and getting it done and being able to look back and be like, yeah, I did all of those things, compared to someone who is setting the vision and the mission. Doesn't always have to be the person at the highest level at the top who's doing that. They can bring someone in regardless of the position or the level of influence that they have within the business or the company and use that natural gifting to help them vision cast, to help them brainstorm, to put stuff on a whiteboard. Maybe it's something that they absolutely hate doing and they don't even want to work with someone to do it. You just give them the task. And for me, like I would enjoy doing that outside of my regular job, or if obviously it's my boss, my manager says, hey, you're clear for the day. You have this 4 hour block to just go brainstorm and fix this problem, please. Figure out a bunch of ideas, come up with lots of courses of action on how we can fix this problem, how we can better utilize our resources or whatever the constraint might be that you are trying to address. I would absolutely love that. There's another framework that Alex Hormozy talks about, and it was a guy that wrote an article in, I think, 2009 talking about makers versus managers and how to set up your schedules. I'm going to be combining and blending all these different frameworks into a masterpiece and a masterclass of how to work through this entire workflow and get the best out of their teams without burning them out. So that's where my framework kind of differentiates, as well as the 6 types of working genius. So we want to focus on adaptability and evolution, and we're going to continuously tweak and make this better. But from the start, we're already working from a great starting point. And if you haven't had this kind of training, or you don't have the year of time to spend investing in yourself and learning these types of things, then you definitely want to work with someone who's already got that understanding. So we'll have an emphasis on holistic assignment across individual talents. So you got to look across the team, look at what the team needs, what the project needs, and the organizational goals, and be able to have that broad spectrum of understanding, because you can't just do it for a one person team. If you are a one person team, this helps you know who you need to hire. So if you're a training manager, a human resources manager, or something like that, you're a recruiter, these types of frameworks can absolutely help you to get the right people in the right job in the first place. So then you prevent where you have someone 6 months down the road realizing that they hate their job and they wish they were in this other role, and that was an option in the first place. They just had no idea, but now they're invested and they're entrenched and everyone relies on them for that work. So it's a vicious cycle, but the sooner you start addressing it, the better off your organization is going to be. So a couple questions for folks as you're watching this and finishing up. This is pretty short. I like to keep my videos succinct. In training, really, because my experience is in training, I've looked through instructional system design frameworks and plans and done curriculum development and all these types of things. You learn better in 10 to 15 minute snippets anyway. Once I start going longer than that, y'all are going to start tuning out, and it's going to feel like, this piece wasn't very valuable, and then it's a waste of your time. So I'll always be efficient and effective as much as possible. So a couple questions for you all to work on. Post in the community, drop a comment on here wherever it is that you see it. Start thinking about this and engage with some people. So what's one area where you feel your team's talents are underutilized? And a lot of people can think of this maybe for someone else or for themselves, and they've been complaining about it, maybe to their spouse or their friends or whatever. It's like, man, I could do this. I could totally do this. If they would just give me the chance, I could show them my capabilities. And as I was describing some of those different roles within the spectrum of work and workflows, maybe one of those resonated with you, or a couple of them resonated with you. And you're like, yeah, I get it. This is me. This is where I belong. Like I said, I like to be on the left end, wonder and invention, come up with the ideas, and I can come up with a bunch of them, and I could look at a problem and figure out a bunch of different ways that you could address it and fix it, and then hand it off to somebody else. I don't want to be the implementer. I don't want to be the one who's going out and doing those things. So for me, this is my wonder space where I'm able to share what I know and just think more deeply about these problems and then help people solve them. So another question to ask yourself is, how do you currently approach aligning roles with natural abilities? Maybe you've never even phrased it in that way, but if you did, maybe now you'll start to shift your perspective and see that there are role alignments that you could be connecting people with, that you could be making those small tweaks within a meeting, within a role assignment, or whatever it is, to actually get people thriving in the work that they're doing. And that is all I have for everyone. The big thing, obviously, is that aligning talents is a dynamic process. You have to be aware of all the different contributing factors matching those responsibilities with the abilities and evolving as you need to do that. So you can unlock your team's full potential with a few minor tweaks and then implementing some practices. That's why within my framework, we talk about align, activate, and accelerate, because once you've done this alignment piece, well, what's next? What's next after that? There are steps that you can take to really maximize your team and do it in a way that isn't harming them, that isn't frustrating. They can actually work in their areas of genius and competency rather than being frustrated all the time. So if this resonated with you, I encourage you all to jump in. I'll be doing these weekly live sessions within the Workforce Accelerator community. Let's keep building this. Let's keep doing the work that we need to do to have high performing teams, to be high performing individuals, and tell people about the community. Because as we get more and more people involved, we're going to hear ideas that I've never heard before. We're going to hear practices that will help enhance everyone within the community. And then you can share there and learn from each other. This isn't a one directional thing. I don't want an audience. We want to have an actual community of people interacting and engaging together where we're all bettering our programs and ourselves. So thank you all for tuning in. Catch you on the next one.